Okay, next step for the walls is what we're going to do is we're going to take Faux Tex or Aquastone and just throw it on a hawk and trowel. I've thinned this about 20% with water. With Faux Tex, it's a pretty thick product when you get it, so I've gone up to like 40% with water and still trowels great. What we're going to do is start covering up our walls. So this part's only for the walls, and we want to really create an organic effect. So I'm going to just kind of tap it onto the bottom of my trowel and just kind of randomly start laying it in. And then I'll do some of that, and I'll also like load one side of my trowel, and this texture that's already existing on there is going to randomly pick up the plaster anyway. So you want to have kind of this random effect of areas that are covered totally solid and areas that it's like they've broken away or chipped away. Especially if I see something I like there's a lot of texture and fracturing right there. Like I can just kind of come in and work around it. Just bounce around randomly. You don't want to get contrived. You want the whole thing to look out of balance when you're totally done. You don't want it to be a consistent, like 30% holes everywhere. You want some areas where there's not one, and some areas where like a huge 3-foot section's broken away. So you just kind of work into an area. And now I can leave that as exposed. The biggest thing when you want to leave an area exposed, just make sure there's no like straight edges or anything that would represent a trowel mark so it looks contrived. Just needs to look like it fell apart naturally. So the best process for this is just bounce around the room. Like don't just work a section, just jump around and do it in like maybe 3 passes and you get the look you want. You can kind of step back and see the balance. Okay, so now we're back on the ceiling, and like I said before, this is our background plaster. We're going to put another layer of base colored plaster over this, then our Modello design, distress that, and blah blah blah. But we want to re-expose this later on, so what we're going to do is actually tape out sections and protect areas of this that when we're done, we're going to pull the tape out and it's going to look like huge chunks of this have fallen away. And there's a few steps involved in doing this. The first thing we got to do is kind of just tape off our sections and cut them out, which is what I'm going to show you how to do right now. And it's really hard to teach someone how to do this with good composition, to do like a distressed, totally fallen apart look. There's a lot of mistakes people make where it looks really contrived. You know, there's things you got to watch out for, like a lot of people are scared to like do huge chunks of missing areas, and like in nature, like things fall apart how they're going to fall apart. You can't really dictate or control it. So don't be afraid to just make a mess of it. You always want to like read your client to know, like, you know, are they really ready to do something very distressed? But you just want to keep it random, and the biggest thing is keep it out of balance. Naturally, people want to, when they're laying in sections like this, like, well, if I have one here, I have to have one over here. You don't. All right, just start going around the room, taping it off, breaking it apart. You can always come in and readjust it. So we'll get started with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use 1.5-inch blue tape. You can also find resources where you can get huge rolls of masking if you don't want to take the time to kind of apply a lot of tape, because you will go through a lot of tape doing it this way. But I'm just going to kind of build one down in this corner. So I'm just going to start applying strips of tape and just overlapping them about 1/8 of an inch and just build the block section out. And that's what I'm going to do first. Okay, so now I've got my section blocked out, so now I'm just going to take a Sharpie or a pencil, whatever you want, and I'm just going to kind of draw in this random kind of breakaway. All right, no rhyme or reason, you know, so I'll have this section broken away, and maybe I'll do like another little chunk right here. Okay, just kind of draw it in for reference. And then, like, I'll do this around the whole area, go back and look at my drawings and be like, yeah, I don't want that there, that doesn't look right, or I'm not happy with that shape. And then after I'm done doing that, I'll just take a razor knife and I come in and just hold the blade real loosely so I'm not making a bunch of straight lines. And just come and cut out this design. All right, and then I can go ahead and start pulling this tape out. Okay, so now you can see where my tape's left in. So this is all going to be covered in plaster and design. This is going to stay there at the end. We're going to pull that out and then it's going to expose that. And I'll show you some tricks because, you know, a lot of times you see finishers kind of do an effect like this. So then when they pull it out, there's this nice little straight, faux-y, contrived, awful line. So there's a process you can do that we're going to create a lot of fracturing around the outline of these so that it looks like a really authentic, like the plaster actually started to crumble and broke away. There's not this hard established line. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around my whole ceiling, lay it all out, and then we'll bring you back and talk about the composition and why I did what and some little tricks, some little things that look cool. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so now you can see I've got the composition laid in. You can see parts of the ceiling looking straight up at it. And so it's just totally random, broken apart. And then you can see right there, you know, you've got these little islands that are inset in some of the breakaway areas. So right now what you're looking at is everywhere that is blue with the blue tape will eventually fall back off and expose the underlayer. And everywhere this underlayer of plaster we already have on there is exposed is going to end up being the new plaster with the full overlay design. And that's kind of the gist of the layout. Okay, so you can see this is like one of the larger breakaway areas, and you definitely want to have some of those. You don't want them to be all like somewhat the same shape and size. You want it totally random. Get down, take a look at it again, make sure that it's all laying out the way you want. And it's really cool and a good idea on these big ones to actually cut out these kind of islands where your image is going to go back in. It like totally changes the look. It's really cool once you pull it down and you have the image kind of reappear in these sections, and it's just a lot more authentic. All right, so now we'll move on to the next step, laying our crackle size and plaster over this so we can get onto our full overlay design.